सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् कलाकाष्ठादिरूपेण परिणामप्रदायिनी विश्वस्योवरदोसक्ते नारायणी नमोऽस्तुते। ஆஸ்திகதர்மம் வார்ஷிக மகோத்சவம் ரொம்ப அற்புதமாக 2-3 நாளாக நாம் இந்த வார்ஷிக மகோத்சவத்தை அனுபவிச்சுட்டு இருக்கோம். இந்த வார்ஷிக மகோத்சவத்தில் பஞ்சாங்கத்தோடைய அவசியத்தை பற்றி முதல் நாள் பார்த்தோம். இன்னும் பஞ்சாங்கத்தோடைய விவரணங்களை பற்றி பின்னாடி பார்க்க போகிறோம். இந்த பஞ்சாங்கத்தில் வேற என்ன விசேஷங்கள் இருக்குங்கிறத பற்றி பின்னாடி இன்னொரு நாள் அடுத்த வாரத்தில் பார்க்க போகிறோம். மற்ற பஞ்சாங்கத்துக்கு இந்த பஞ்சாங்கத்துக்குள்ள வித்தியாசங்களையும் நாம் தெரிஞ்சுக்கலாம். அந்த சமயத்தில் இந்த பஞ்சாங்கத்தை நாம் எப்படி பிரயோஜனப்படுத்திக்கலாம், நமக்கு எந்த அளவுக்கு இது பிரயோஜனமாக இருக்க போகிறது அப்படிங்கிறதையும் நம்ம அடுத்த வாரத்தில் நம்ம பார்க்கலாம். நேற்றுக்கும் முந்தா நாளும் 2 நாளும் ரொம்ப அற்புதமாக பிரம்மஸ்ரீ ஸ்ரீ ரமண சர்மா அவர்கள் நமக்கு இந்த தேசாந்திர சம்ஸ்காரம் ஒரு கிராஃப்லாம் போட்டு காமிச்சு, நான் முதல்ல அன்றைக்கே சொன்னது போல் இது உபன்யாசமாக இல்லாமல் ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு ரிசர்ச்சாக இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு சொன்ன ஒரு தீசிஸ் சப்மிட் பண்ணால் எப்படி இருக்குமோ அந்த மாதிரி அவள் ஒரு பவர் பாயிண்ட்லாம் போட்டு நமக்கு அந்த விஷயத்தை காமிச்சாலே ரொம்ப அற்புதமாக இருக்கு. ஒரு விஷயம் தெரிஞ்சவா தான் இதெல்லாம் பண்ண முடியும். எங்களை மாதிரி இருக்கிறவாளுக்கு இதில் இருக்கக்கூடியதான சாஸ்திரியமான விஷயத்தை தான் பேச முடியும். ஆனால் அவள் ஆధుனிகமான விஷயத்தையும் எடுத்து சாஸ்திரியமான விஷயத்தையும் எடுத்து ரெண்டுத்தையும் சமன்வயப்படுத்தி இந்த மாதிரி ரொம்ப அற்புதமான ஒரு விஷயத்தை அவள் நமக்கு அனுகிரகம் பண்ணியிருக்கா. அவளுக்கு முதல்ல பூர்ணமான ஒரு கிருதஜ்ஞையை தெரிவிச்சுக்கிறேன். இன்றைய தினம் உபன்யாசமானது இங்கிலீஷில் இருக்க போகிறது. இந்த லெக்சர் டோட்டலாக இந்த லெக்சரே முழுக்க இங்கிலீஷில் தான் பண்ணணும்னு சொல்லி விஞ்ஞாபனம் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். முதல் நாள் ஸ்வாகத்தத்தும் போதே அந்த வார்த்தையை சொல்லியிருந்தேன். ஒரு ஐஐடியில் இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு ப்ரொஃபஸர், பொதுவாகவே மெட்ராஸ் ஐஐடி மெட்ராஸ்ன்னு சொன்னாலே அதில் மகாவித்வான்கள் தான் அங்கே ப்ரொஃபஸராக இருக்க முடியும். அதுலேயும் பார்த்தா நிறையா நம்மளுடைய சனாதன தர்மத்தை பரிபாலனம் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கக்கூடியவா, அதுலேயும் நல்லா அனுஷ்டானத்தோடு இருக்கக்கூடியவா நிறையா பேர் இருக்கா அதில் ஐஐடி மெட்ராஸில். லௌகிகமான ஒரு வித்தியில போனாலும் வைதீகமான ஒரு மார்க்கத்தை அனுஷ்டானத்தை விடாம கடைபிடிச்சுட்டு இருக்கக்கூடிய மகா வித்வான்கள் நிறைய பேருக்கு ஐஐடி மெட்ராஸ்ல இருந்துருக்கா. நம்மளுடைய இன்னைக்கு இருக்கக்கூடிய டைரக்டர் ஸ்ரீமான் காமகோட்டி சார் அவர்கள் கூட தன்னுடைய குல தர்ம பழக்கங்கள் சாஸ்திர சம்பிரதாயங்கள்னு சொல்றோமே அதை எல்லாத்தையும் நல்லா பரிபாலனம் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கக்கூடியவர் ஐஐடி மெட்ராஸ்ல இருக்கார். இன்னைக்கு இந்த ஐஐடி மெட்ராஸ்ல இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு ப்ரொஃபஸர் நமக்கு ரொம்ப பரம மித்திரராக இருக்கக்கூடியவர். நம்மளுடைய ஆஸ்திக தர்மம் உருவான காலத்துல இருந்து ஏன் இப்படி ஒரு ஆஸ்திக தர்மம் உருவாகணும், இப்படி ஒரு சோசியல் மீடியா கொண்டு வரணும்னு யோஜனை சொன்ன காலம் யோஜனை சொன்னது கூட அவரும் ஒருத்தர். பெரியவா கிட்ட போய் இதுக்கு பேர் வைக்கிறதுக்கு 2 பேரை சொல்லி சொன்னேன். அதுல பெரியவா இந்த ஆஸ்திக தர்மம் அப்படிங்கிற பேர் இருக்கட்டும்னு சொல்லி அனுகிரகம் பண்ணினா. அந்த காலத்திலிருந்து நமக்கு ரொம்ப பரமமித்திரமாக இருந்துட்டு எல்லா காரியங்களையும் எடுத்து நமக்காக உபகாரம் பண்ணினார். முதல்ல சந்தியாவந்தன புஸ்தகம் போட்டது, 2வது சந்தியாவந்தன புஸ்தகம் போட்டது, ஒவ்வொரு பிடிஎஃப் கொடுக்கறதும். இன்னைக்கும் வேத தர்ம சாஸ்திர பரிபாலன சபையில பிடிஎஃப்லாம் நீங்க நிறைய ஜென்ரேட் ஆகி வருதுன்னா அதுல இவா 2 பேரும் தான் ரொம்ப முக்கியஸ்தான். அப்படி நிச்சயம் பஞ்சாங்கங்கள் நமக்கு கொடுத்துட்டு இருக்கா. அந்த திருக்கணித பஞ்சாங்கம், இவர் திருக்கணித பஞ்சாங்கம் பல ஊர்களுக்கு அவருடைய வெப்சைட்ல போட்டிருக்கார். இப்ப இந்த வருஷத்துல போன வருஷம் நாம பேசிட்டு இருக்கும் பொழுது சில விஷயங்கள் நடந்து அதோடைய இம்பாக்ட் இந்த வருஷம் அவர் சுமார் 400 பிரதேசங்களுக்கு வேர்ல்டு ஃபுல்லா இருக்கக்கூடிய இடங்களுக்கு திருக்கணித பஞ்சாங்கத்தை கொடுத்தார். ஏன் பஞ்சாங்கம்னு சொல்றேன் அப்படின்னா, எல்லாரும் ஜென்ரேட் பண்ண முடியும், ஆனா அது பஞ்சாங்கமா இருக்காது. நீதிக்கு சொன்ன மாதிரி கேலண்டரா தான் ஜென்ரேட் பண்ண முடியும். கேலண்டருக்கு மேல தர்மசாஸ்திரம் உள்ள புகுந்து அந்த காலத்தை சலிச்சு பார்த்து அதனுடைய அனுஷ்டான நிர்ணயத்தை காமிச்சாதான் அது பேர் தான் பஞ்சாங்கம்னு. அப்படி 400 சிட்டிக்கு திருக்கணித ரீதியாக அவர் பஞ்சாங்கத்தை எடுத்து கொடுத்திருக்கார். அப்பேற்பட்டதான ஒரு நல்ல விஷயமுடையவர். அவர் நமக்கு இன்றைய தினம் இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ் ஆஃப் லொகேஷன் ஸ்பெசிஃபிக் பஞ்சாங்கா அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு தலைப்பில் இங்கிலீஷில் நமக்கு இந்த லெக்சர் கொடுக்க போகிறார். யஜுர்வேத பூர்ணமாக அத்தியனம் பண்ணவர், கொஞ்சம் காவிய ஞானமும் இருக்கக்கூடியவர், சம்ஸ்கிருத பாண்டித்யம் இருக்கக்கூடியவர், கணித விஷயத்துல நல்ல புலமை பெற்றவராக இருக்கக்கூடியவர், அனுஷ்டானத்தை பிரதானமாக வச்சுட்டு இருக்கக்கூடியவர். நம்மளுடைய காஞ்சி மடத்துல பிரதி வருஷம் பஞ்சாங்க சதஸில் வந்து கலந்துண்டு அதில் நிர்ணயம் சொல்றதுக்கு முக்கியமாக இருக்கக்கூடியதான வித்வான்களுக்கு இந்த ஆధుனிகமான இந்த யந்திரங்கள் மூலமாக எத்தனை, அதாவது கம்ப்யூட்டர் முதலான விஷயங்களை எத்தனை விதமான உபகாரங்களும் பண்ணி அவளுக்கு அதை சுலபமாக ஆக்கி கொடுக்க முடியுமோ அதெல்லாம் பண்ணி கொடுக்கக்கூடியவர். எங்களுடைய தேவிமானம் அஷ்டாங்க பஞ்சாங்கத்தை இருக்கக்கூடியவர் பிரம்மஸ்ரீ ஸ்ரீமான் டாக்டர் ஆர் கார்த்திக் ராமன் அவர்கள் இன்றைய தினம் இங்கே வந்திருக்கார். அவருக்கு ஸ்வாகதம் சொல்லி நம்மளுடைய ஆஸ்திக தர்மம் சார்பாகவும் நம்ம ஆஸ்திக மகாஜனங்கள் சார்பாகவும் அவருக்கு ஸ்வாகதம் சொல்லி வரவேற்கிறோம். அவர் இன்றைய தினம் நமக்கு இந்த ஸ்பெசிபிக் லொகேஷன், ஒவ்வொரு லொகேஷனுக்கும் எதுக்கு பஞ்சாங்கம் தனித்தனியாக போடணும் அப்படிங்கிறத பற்றி அவர் சொல்ல போகிறார். நாம் அதை சிரவணம் பண்ணி அதுபடி நாம் எத்தனை விஷயங்களையும் முதல் நாள் பெரிவாலும் அனுகிரக பாஷணத்தின் போது சொன்னால் ஒவ்வொரு ஊருக்கும் தனித்தனியாக பஞ்சாங்கங்கள்லாம் இருக்கணும், அதுதான் பிராச்சீன சம்பிரதாயம்னு சொன்னார். அந்த விஷயத்தை இன்னைக்கு அவர் அதிகப்படுத்தி இன்னைக்கு காண்பிக்க போகிறார் நமக்கு. நாம் இருந்து அதை சிரவணம் பண்ணணும்னு கேட்டுக்கிறவங்க எல்லார்ட்டையும். மேலே இந்த ஆஸ்திக தர்மம் யூடியூப் சேனலை தயவு செஞ்சு எல்லாரும் உங்களோட சேர்த்து இணைச்சிக்கோங்க. அதாவது இங்கிலீஷில் சொன்னால் சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணிக்கோங்க. நீங்கள் ஆஸ்திக தர்மம் யூடியூப் சேனலோட சேர்த்துக்கோங்க. உங்களுக்கு மெசேஜ் வரும், நீங்கள் பார்க்காது உங்களுடைய சௌகரியம். ஆனால் இனிமே இந்த ஆஸ்திக தர்மம் மூலமாக ஜோதிஷ ரீதியாக, அதாவது ஜோதிஷம்னு பல ஜோதிஷம் இல்லை, கணித ஜோதிஷம். பல ஜோதிஷம் சொல்கிறதுக்கு நீங்கள் நிறைய பேர் இருக்கா. இந்த ஜோதிஷ கணித ரீதியாக பல விஷயங்கள் இனிமேல் இந்த தொடர்ந்து ரிலே பண்ண போகிறோம். எல்லாரும் பார்த்து அதை விஷயங்களை தெரிஞ்சுக்கணுங்கிறதாக பிரார்த்தனை பண்ணி உங்கள் எல்லாருடைய சார்பாகவும் ஆஸ்திக ஜனங்கள் ஆஸ்திக தர்மம் சார்பாகவும் ஸ்ரீமான் கார்த்திக் ராமன் அவர்களை ஸ்வாகதம் சொல்லி வரவேற்கிறோம். ஸ்வாகதம் ஸ்வாகதம்.
Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about the importance of having a location-specific Panchaanga. Shuklambaradham Vishwam Shashivadman Chaturmukam Prasannavadhanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantayen Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Padyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram आदित्याय सोमाय मंगलाय बुधाय गुरु शुक्र शनिभ्यश्च राहवे केतवे नमः आरोग्यं प्रददातु दिनकरश्चन्द्रो यशो निर्मलम् भूतिं भूमिस्वसुधांशुतनयः प्रज्ञां गुरुगौरवं काव्यः कोमलवाग्विलासमतुलं मन्दोमृतं सर्वदा राहुर्बाहुबलं विरोधशमनं केतुकरस्योन्नतिम्. I'm really delighted to be giving this talk on this on the occasion of the launch of the Astika Dharmam Panchangam Brahma Shri Varanidhara Shastrigal. Just to set the stage, I think we have all been using Panchangas for a very long time, and we've been using various kinds of Panchangas, but there is a lot of importance to using a Panchanga that has been carefully calculated for a given location, the location wherever a particular Anushthanam is supposed to be done. So this is going to be the main focus of my topic. So let me go ahead and introduce the topic. I think these are all very familiar pictures to most of you. You must be using one of these at your home. Most of us have traditionally used what we call Madatha Panchangam, which is based on Rigganitam and centered at Kanchipuram, or Pamp Panchangam, which is based on Vakya Ganitam, which is centered at Tanjavur. And Srirangam Vakya Panchangam, as the name itself says, the location and the Siddhanta that is used for the calculations. But how correct are these Panchangas? There is always a bit of debate about whether Dirghanitam is correct or Vakya Ganitam is correct, or and so on. And there are some other schools of Panchanga calculation, Ganana as well. But today we will not go into all of that. I will share some resources at the end of the of this talk. But what is more important is these Panchangas are mostly correct. Right? For our purposes, they are mostly correct. Let's not get into the issues about whether they are aligned with Pratyaksha Tulyam or not. Right? So whether they are accurately reflecting the astronomical events that we see. Here, definitely Drik has the upper hand, and thankfully we have both Dirghanitam and Vakya Ganitam featured in Varnya's Astika Dharma Panchangam. But the point I want to emphasize is different. But how many of us actually live close or live close to or live in Tanjavur, Kanchipuram, Srirangam? We might be living in Chennai, Mumbai, Coimbatore, Delhi, Kolkata, or even outside India, and still staunchly follow the Artha Panchangam. Does that make sense, right? And more importantly, the Vakya Panchangas are all calibrated to Ujjaini mean sunrise. So this is a interesting thing, and I think you would have already understood a bit of this from Brahmashri Ramananna's lecture, where he's given very detailed exposition on the importance of Deshandra Sanskaram, which is a very unique aspect of Astika Dharma Panchangam and so on. But the thing is, these Panchangas being calibrated to Ujjaini mean sunrise, right? So when it says that Ekadashi is still Udayadi 3 Ghatikas today, right? 3 Ghatikas is 72 minutes. 72 minutes from where? From your sunrise, or it actually means Ujjaini local mean sunrise, which is around 6:27 a.m. So you'll have to do 6:37 plus 72 minutes, which is like 7:39. So 7:39 is the end of Ekadashi on that particular day, if your Panchangam were to say 3 Ghatikas. But this is a lot of work, and even though it is simple math, unfortunately today we are not so accustomed to doing that kind of quick math in that base as well, right? So you need to always multiply by 24 and 24 by and by 60 of a part of the remaining, so it says 24/3. Right? So that means 1/20th of 24 minutes, right? 3 by 60 into 24 minutes. So all that is unfortunately something that we are not so readily used to these days. But that apart, many Panchangas also indicate the IST time ending there, which is good as long as it has been correctly calculated. And I think that is something that is very carefully done in Astika Dharma Panchangam. And I think you can see the explanations as also given by the other speakers before me and so on. But even if you were to do this carefully, right? If you were to, if you get the Tithi ending, the Nakshatra ending and all that correctly by calculating IST or by applying Ujjaini mean sunrise, perfect. You can do your Sankalpams correctly. What about festival observances? And this is a highly non-trivial matter. So I'll just come to that in a moment. So the question here is, should we still follow the same Panchanga no matter where we live? I think I've sort of set up the questions so far well enough that you already know that the answer is a resounding no. But why? So, and remember here, we are not talking about any Panchanga, Siddhanta or any of those things. The question is, this is irrefutable that Anushtanas have to be performed based on the Tithi Nakshatra at that location at that time, Desha Kalam. Right? So based on what is the Tithi and what is the Nakshatra at that location at that particular time. Right? So if you know that you are going to be in Mumbai on a particular date in this month, you're going to travel to Mumbai, and it's an Ekadashi, it's around an Ekadashi Vratam that you normally observe. Hopefully everybody should be striving to observe it in some way or form. But then you should actually be worried about figuring out when is the Ekadashi Vratam in Mumbai during that period, right? So do you have to fast in wherever is your hometown the previous day? or the fast is going to be in Mumbai on that day, so you will be going to Mumbai on that day, so you will fast there, whatever, right? So these things you have to figure out. And more importantly, for Shraddha Tithis, I will come back to this in the due course of this talk. So let us try to understand festival reckoning. As I was mentioning, it is very, very important to perform Anushtanams correctly. While fasting on a Dashami brings, while fasting on Ekadashi brings great punya, fasting on a Dashami brings papa. So this is, and it is very clearly, there are so many shlokas, so many Dharma Shastra Granthas that have expounded this with in great detail. So you need to follow all the Anushtanams on the right day. And there might be an eclipse in one place, the eclipse may not be visible in another place. So you will not be able to observe the Punya Kala on that day. And it is very easy for us to imagine that festivals will change from Chennai to Chicago. I think that level of understanding we all have, because there is a very perceptible difference in time zones, like 12 hours or so, 12 plus hours. And so it is very obvious. But they could change even within the same country, within the same state, for example, right? Even from, say, Tanjavur to Coimbatore, or even Chennai to Kanchipuram, where the distance is very, very less. So can we understand a little bit more about this festival reckoning? And that is non-trivial. And as you see, there are groups of brilliant scholars who get together each year under the leadership of Brahma Shri Sundararama Vajpayee Ji, and very ably coordinated by Brahma Shri Shri Ramana Sharma, with the blessings of our Jagat Gurus for the last several decades, if not more than a century, as far as records go. Okay. But what do they discuss? So there are detailed Dharma Shastra Granthas that capture the rules. Should a tithi for observing, say, Ramanavami, should it be present in the morning? Should it be present in Madhyana, which is what it is? Or should it be present at midnight, which is the case for Krishna Janmashtami? And what should you do if it is present at sunrise on both days? If it is not present at sunrise on either day, how do you handle these kinds of scenarios? And there are so many such permutations and combinations that come into for the calculation of any festival. And this becomes a challenge to discuss. And you will be surprised and probably shocked to know that Ekadashi Nirnaya, you pick any book like Purushartha Chintamani or Vaidyanath Dikshitiyam, some of the classic granthas, there are roughly 100 to 150 pages of discussion on Ekadashi. Different kinds of Ekadashis, different kinds of combination. If there is little Ekadashi at sunrise, and there is no Dwadashi on the next day, when should you do it? If there is Dwadashi on 2 days, when should you Ekadashi on 2 days, Dwadashi on 2 days, when should you do it? If there is Dashami at Arunodaya, then Vaishnavas don't fast on that day, even if there is Ekadashi. There are so many such rules to be grappled with, and this is the subject of such an erudite scholarly group like the Srimandam Panchaanga Sadas, which happens during Chaturmasyam each year. And it takes about 2-3 days to debate all the festivals, all the observances. When is Janmashtami? When is Vijayadashami? What is the Muhurtam for doing the certain pujas? All of these things are debated at length and discussed, and the solutions arrived at following shastras for given locations for different siddhantas as well. Right? So according to Drit Siddhanta, the tithi might end at 7 p.m. According to Vakya Siddhanta, the tithi might end at 7:30 p.m. Does that cause a change in the observance? If so, how? Why? And many of them might remember that last year there were such discussions happening for Vinayaka Chaturthi. And I will show that as an example a little later on. But why do all these changes happen? It's because of sunrise. Right? And not just sunrise, but sunset also, and essentially the span of daytime, which is also called ahas. So the span of day, right? And from this picture, you can actually see, this picture actually tries to roughly capture the length of the day also. This is a particular snapshot at a particular point of time of which parts of the world are receiving light from the sun, and which parts are in night and are in darkness. So if you see in this, you see that these parts have a lot of sun. So you have long days here. So if you see, this is the distance, this is the time, essentially the length, right? So for which there will be sunlight. And if you look at this part, this is in the southern hemisphere, so this is going to be a short day for them. There's nobody living in this portion, but maybe there's somebody on this island. And if we see, the day is relatively short, right? So from sunrise to sunset, this is roughly the time between sunrise and sunset. Around the equator, you're roughly going to see a similar amount of daylight each day. Right? It's going to be very close to 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night. But this changes during the summer when, and in India, it's not such a big deal. You will see that our daylight, especially if you are from South India, the changes barely an hour or so. But if you are in the north of India, you also get to experience the wonderfully low temperatures like we saw, in Ayodhya during the Ramlala Prana Pratishtha. Like 6 degrees, 8 degrees, and so on. And you have short days. Right? Of course, this was just past Uttarayana has started. So, the days have started slowly lengthening, but the sunrise is actually very, very late. You see that, in Chennai, the sunrise today was around 6:40 a.m., which is among probably one of the latest sunrises that you get to see in Chennai. And whereas in the peak summer, it can become as early as 5:43 a.m. So you have this minor 1 hour plus or minus fluctuation in sunrise and around a little bit more, right? Like close to 1.5 hours fluctuation in the daylight time. You have at least, 10.5 to 11 hours of daylight or at most 12.5 to 13 plus hours of daylight, depending upon whether it is summer or winter. So why are we belaboring this? And a quick note at the bottom, please note that the newspaper sunrise timings are typically off the Shastrik sunrise sunset timings, which is essentially the Madhya Bhimba Darshanam. So the middle portion of the moon disk or the sun disk at the horizon, ignoring refraction and anything else. So typically the newspaper or like, whatever, timeanddate.com or any other good websites that show these accurate timings, they will be off by 3 or 4 minutes because they capture the edge of the disk with refraction correction. So all calculations mentioned in the Shastras, they pertain to relative Ghatikas that account for ahas and sunrise. And this is something that is a little, forgotten over the, at least by the Laukika people, like, we lost track of this. And all these calculations are relative. And this is actually very easy if you think about it from a different perspective. So 0 hours is sunrise. That is the start of the day. Right? So from sunrise to next sunrise is any of our days. So 0 is the sunrise, 15 is midday, right? Ahar Madhyam, 30 is sunset. 30 Ghatikas have passed. It is not 720 minutes. Right? That will probably happen 1 or 2 days a year, close to the equinoxes. But basically, you may have like 13 or 13.5 hours of sunrise, but so the morning Ghatikas are therefore, have more time, right? Each Ghatika is probably 25 minutes, 25.5 minutes, compared to evening night Ghatikas, which are going to be a little shorter because it is relative to the time between sunset and sunrise. And this is also very instructive because all the festival calculations are based on, whether it is there in Pratah Kala or Sangava Kala, Madhyana Kala, Parandha Kala, Sayanha Kala, and so on. So a quick rundown of these time periods in a day. Ahoratram is the whole day, right, which is the time between one sunrise and the next sunrise. This is roughly very close to 24 hours. Yamaha is 1/4 of the time between sunrise and sunset or sunset and sunrise. So yamas will be longer during, day yamas will be longer during summer and night yamas will be longer during winter and shorter during summer. Muhurta is 2 Ghatikas, roughly 48 minutes, but it is actually 1/15th of the period from sunrise to sunset. If it were exactly 720 minutes or like 12 hours, it's going to be 48 minutes, but it's never the case. Ghatika again is 24 minutes. So these are all what one normally calls Dharma Shastra Ghatikas. In Jyotisha Shastram and in practical Panchaanga calculations or printed Panchangas, what you see is a Ghatika is 24 minutes because we need that standard to make any calculations, right? Otherwise, it becomes even more complicated, which is why you need the Ujjaini Madhyarama also. This is like 6:27 a.m. sunrise on every day. So I know exactly if you have you need a fixed basis for doing any of these mathematical calculations. But let's not get into all of those. Maybe another time in another context. and so on, right? So Ghatika is 24 minutes, a Palam is 1/60th of a Ghatika, which is close to 24 seconds. And we have smaller than a second numbers like Vigatika, which is about 0.4, 0.4 seconds. 5-4 divisions of a day are very important. There are other kinds of divisions as well. There are muhurtas, for example, right? And there are ghatikas, right? So every muhurta, each of the muhurta, like you might have heard of Abhijit Muhurta, Kutapakala, and things like that. All of these are particular muhurtas of the day, right? So the middle muhurta of the morning is Abhijit Muhurta, which is very special for various observances and so on. But Pratah Kala is the first 1/5 of the daytime. So if the day is 12 hours, it is and sunrise at 6 a.m., easy to calculate. 6 to 8:24 would be Pratah Kala, 8:24 to 10:48 is Sangama Kala, 10:48 to 13:12 is Aparana Kala, Madhyana Kala, and so on. So that is very, very straightforward. But in reality, that never happens. So you need to actually accurately calculate these and then look at the intersection of a tithi or a nakshatra with these kalas, is it there in Pratah Kala. So this Trimuhurta Vyapti is very important for celebrating birthdays or wedding days. I'll come to that in the immediate next slide. Other significant points in a day are like say Brahma Muhurtam. Brahma Muhurtam is, there are different reckonings, but one of them is that it is the second last Muhurta of the night, which is, so it is going to be from 56:0 to 58:0. Very easy to say. Like, otherwise, I have to give you all kinds of complex things to tell you what it is, right? So it is 56/60 into yesterday's sunset minus, today's sunrise minus yesterday's sunset, right? That would be the formula. That is so much more complicated or not so easy to wrap your head around. Kapat, if I were to just say 56:0. 56:0, you have now figured out what I mean, because from what I mentioned here, 00 is sunrise, 15:0 is midday, 45:0 is midnight, 60:0 is next sunrise. Then you have Sandhya Kala, which is like one muhurta before the start of sunrise or sunset. Right? So you're ideally supposed to do Sandhya or Gayatri for the entire time, and do Upasthanam just after sunrise or just before sunrise or just before sunset. Very close at that stroke. Pradosha Kala is something that I think is very famous in temples and for Pradosha Vratam and so on. So that is 3.75 Ghatikas, right? After sunset. So that is 30 to 33:45. And Dinanta, this is very important, which is very, in fact, Shri Bharani is amazing in the sense that he's put this in the Panchaanga. This is so important for Ashocha Nirnayam, whether it is be a 3-day Ashocham or a 10-day Ashocham and so on. And then several other things, right? So Dinanta is marks the end of the day for this Ashocha Dinanta. And this is 48:45. It is so easy. You can just remember that. So calculating that is a little bit more tricky. It is 18.75 by 30 into night time plus sunset, something like that. But 48:45, you can start doing the math. So this is easy to remember, 48:45. And Rahu Kala happens for 3.75 Ghatikas. Right? So that is 3 Ghatikas and 45 Vigatikas. And we normally say 1.5 hours. Right? That holds only when ahas is 12 hours. So never happens. Right? So remember that all times are related to length of day or length of night. And when we say 7:30 to 9 is Rahu Kala, it is very convenient as a shorthand, but it does not sync with sun or day night. And you can easily imagine this. So imagine because the 7:30 is an IST phenomenon. Right? What if India suddenly, God forbid, but what if we suddenly choose to follow daylight saving? And from March 20th, the clocks spring forward by an hour or so. You can't imagine that. Last week the Rahu Kala was 7:30 to 9 IST. Again, this week also it is 7:30 to 9 IST, but it is a completely different time of the day. You will see that it is a little darker, little brighter, whatever, right? Depending upon whether the clock has moved forward or backward at that time of the year. So there is no connection to IST at all, and I think we should quickly start decoupling those in our heads also. And it is important for observing this based on the sunrise, sunset, right? So 7:30 to 9 is basically it is 1.5 hours. So like so it is essentially what 3:45 to 3:45 to 7:30, right? In Ghatika time, right? So that is going to be the calculation that one would have to correctly do to ascertain these timings. And we are good at doing these things. We have been good at doing those things. We've just started forgetting these a little bit. But as we saw during Pranam Pratishtha Muhurtam, they were saying very clearly, right? It is from 12:29 to 12:30 for 84 seconds is the main Muhurta and so on. And I'm presuming that is very close to the midday of Ayodhya's Ahas and things like that, right? I mean, I'm sure Ayodhya sunrise and sunset were very carefully calculated to account for those things. So coming back, very simple thing that we all celebrate, right? Celebrating birthdays. I know enough people who actually celebrate their wedding days, also based on the nakshatram. Which what there are Shastra Vakyas which actually say that. So high time we follow that if we are not already following it. Varnan has emphasized this in many of his Upanyasams. So Trimuhurta Vyapti is necessary, which means that 3 Muhurtas, which are 6 Ghatikas. So meaning there should be to touch with Sanghavakara. So it should be that the nakshatra or the tithi should be there for the entire, let's talk about nakshatra for birthdays, right? So suppose we are talking about Mahaparivas nakshatra or Vaikasi Anusham. Anusham should be there at the 6th, at the end of 6 muhurtas from sunrise. If it is not there on the date, would have the Jayanti has to be celebrated on the previous. It's a very, very simple rule. And this holds for our own birthdays. Right? So if whatever is your birthday, whichever month, and if there are 2 nakshatras, you should pick the second and all of those things. But even without that, very simple thing that everybody can easily remember is if the nakshatra has contact with 2 days at sunrise, right, or whatever, not necessarily the sunrise, you need to look at on which day it has at least 6 Ghatikas from sunrise. Or if that is not there, it has to be on the previous day and so on. And you can immediately imagine that this is super contingent on sunrise timings, sunrise and length of the day. So this is highly obvious. So similarly for Shraddha, the tithi should be present between 18 and 24 in the Aparandha Kala. And this can again change significantly based on sunrise, sunset and daylight time and affected both by latitude and longitude. Both these are important, right? So because longitude, those of the same longitude will have similar length of day, but sunrise keeps getting later at least, per the standard clock. The daylight time will be same, right? So there are minor nuanced things here. Let's not get into that just yet. Remember this again. Tithi Nakshatram are same all over the earth at a given instant. Okay, but sunrise is not same. Sunrise is going to change. So from day to day, the sunrise changes. But now you see that the sunrise time is very close for all the cities on the same latitude, on the same longitude, right? On the same longitude, all the cities will have the same sunrise, but only close to the equinox. What you will see is as the terminator changes angle. This is called the terminator. I'll quickly demo this. So this is the sunrise. So if you see, as you change, so close to the equinox, this becomes very vertical. You see that the length of the day, length of daylight is same in all the cities, almost. Right? Again, so this was close to March, the vernal equinox. And then, again, close to autumnal equinox, September 23rd-ish, you will see a very similar thing. And when you see close to the solstice, you will see that some places, this is the solstice roughly, you will say that the day is shortest in some places and longest in the southern hemisphere. And the converse is true for our yoga day, which is close to 21st of June, which is the summer solstice or the longest day. And you see that, so all the cities in this line will have, will have daylight at that point, right? And although, the time is the same only in a given time zone, so it's in fact a region and so on. So let's not get into that just yet. But it is very easy to see this terminator and understand that. So if I were to move, So this is how daylight moves. So now, okay, now let's maybe focus close to Chennai, right? So now it is night in Chennai. And then as slowly the sun moves, the sun has risen, it's closer to midday. This is probably closer to midday in Chennai, and then the sun is going to set, and the sun has set, and it is now in darkness, and so on, and it is close to the very next day's sunrise. Okay, so this is what is, if you were to be focusing on one of the points here, right? And as this happens, if I were to have a tithi clock that's ticking over, right? So the tithi is now let's say changing from Ekadashi to Dvadashi. So at all the places which have light, there is Dvadashi at sunrise. Yeah, and at all the other places, Dvadashi is gone before the sun has risen. So only now the sunrise is happening. Let's probably. This is probably easier to think of, right? So now it is dark in Chennai, and let's say it is Ekadashi in Calcutta. There's no problem. There is Ekadashi at sunrise, but now as I move, now it is rising, but now Dvadashi has already come, so there is no Ekadashi at sunrise in Chennai. You can think of things like this, right? And gone, and now maybe Dvadashi is also getting over, and then because the next 24 hours have passed. So these kinds of things can actually happen, and it is important to understand how this will affect the observance of festivals. So let's just quickly look at that. So the ending times or spans of tithis or nakshatras or yogas, karanas, and Sankranti times are same all over the earth. They capture the one celestial event, right? Sun is moving from Makara Rashi to Kumbha Rashi. So that is a Sankranti. That is what is captured, and that is same all over because it's an event happening in the sky. Okay, so it might be 6 a.m. It is happening. It is 6 a.m. and it happens in Chennai. It will be like 8:30 a.m. in Singapore, right? Where the sun would have risen at 7 a.m. So across time zones, it's easy to observe. But imagine, right? So we have one time zone for convenience sake. Otherwise, there is the time zone itself is contingent on sunrise and so on. Essentially, right? That is how the mean time zone for any country is decided. Anyway, so let's not go into that for the moment. But as I was just mentioning, if obviously a tithi ends at 6:20 a.m. today, before sunrise, it will not be present at sunrise in all the locations where sunrise is after 6:20 a.m. I'm literally stating the obvious, but then that is going to affect the observances of several festivals, like Ekadashi, which requires that Ekadashi should be present at sunrise. As I said, there are 100 more pages of rules. But this is like there are like concise ways to determine Ekadashi and so on. There are some simple rules of the thumb, and this is one of those. I will also walk you through some examples now. So similarly for Shraddha Tithi, it is very important, like Amavasya, it is important that if it is present on 2 days, on which day is it present for more time? Let's say it is present on for 2 hours on one day and 1 hour on the second day, then the Shraddha Tithi, the Shraddham should be performed on the first day, be it Amavasya or any other, annual Shraddham or whatever it is. Right? So this can obviously again vary based on sunrise and sunset. And once again, I should give credit to Bharani for talking about this as early as 2021. This probably is one of the reasons that must have prompted him to bring out this Astika Panchaangam too. That the fact that you need to do these things in a location-specific fashion. So here are some quick calculations. So if you are not very mathematically inclined, you can just skip over this part. But these calculations are simple, and it empowers you to do at least simple verifications. So let's look at this. Amavasya started on June 9th, 1358, 1:58 p.m. and was there until June 10th, 4:22 p.m. It was there for a little more than 24 hours, right? Roughly 25.5 hours. If you look at Kanchipuram, the sunrise was 5:48, sunset was 6:32 p.m. and the daylight length was 12 hours 44 minutes. See, over 12 hours, summer. And 1/5 of this is 2 hours 33 minutes, which is the length of all your kalas. Pratha Kala, Sangava Kala, Madhyana Kala, Aparahana Kala of importance here. And the Sayanha Kala. So Aparanna here is 13:26 to 15:59. So what is the overlap with Amavasya? So if you see, Amavasya starts at 13:58. So 13:58 to 15:59 is Amavasya. Right? So it is there for 2 hours and 1 minute on 9th June, whereas it is there for 2 hours and 33 minutes on 10th June. So clearly on the second day, you have a much higher preference. Hence, second day is Amavasya. Now, switch gears to Mumbai. In Mumbai, the sunrise is at 6:04 and sunset is at 19:11. So 13 hours of us. And one-fifth of this is 2:38. Aparana is 13:56. See, it is much later here. There it was 13:26. It is half an hour later Aparana starts. So you've lost half an hour of Amavasya on the first day. I mean, in fact, here Amavasya starts at 13:58. So in fact, you end up having more of Amavasya. You've lost half an hour of Krishna celebration. And Amavasya Vyapti and Aparana is 2 hours 46 minutes on 9th June and 2 hours 36 minutes on 10th June. So essentially, because of this, the day of observance of Amavasya Darpanam, Amavasya Shraddham becomes 9th June here, whereas it was 10th June. And you can actually calculate this carefully and you can draw this beautiful line. So every place on the west of the line, left of the line, will have Amavasya on 9th June, like Mumbai, Pune, Udaipur, Gujarat, Srinagar and all that. And those places on the right, which is like most of the country, so that would be 9th. But it is very important for those living in, say, Nashik or Aurangabad or things like that, to figure out on which day it is, right? And if you see even Delhi, so somebody in Delhi will have would have had to have done Amavasya on 10th June. So even if they were following Kanchipuram location Panchaanga, they were still safe. But those in Mumbai, typically, Mumbai is so far west. So in fact, I should re-emphasize that those in Mumbai should be a little extra cautious about figuring out the dates for the Ekadashis or Shraddhams and so on, because there is enough change happening every year from Kanchipuram to Mumbai. One more example. This was the Shravana Krishna Paksha Ekadashi in August 2022. And you see the line that goes through like this. And this line actually falls between Chennai and Bangalore, or Kanchipuram and Bangalore. So even people so all the location to the left of the pins observed Ekadashi on Monday, 22nd August. For the rest, it was 23rd August. And the Maratha Panchanga would just indicate that it is on 23rd of August. Right? So you need to figure out that, and this is why typically these the Panchanga Sadas or other people release this information so that the Astikas can benefit from it. But if you actually had the correct Panchangam for the location, if you were looking at Astika Dharmam Bangalore Panchangam, which wasn't there in 2022, but if you had that, it would automatically say that the Ekadashi Vratam is on 23rd of August, right? I'm sorry, on 22nd of August, and not 23rd of August, which is what it should have been done in Chennai and other places, right? This is because the Ekadashi Tithi ended at 6:07 IST, and the locations to the right have sunrise before 6:07. So they will have Ekadashi on the next day as well, whereas, that is gone on here. So typically the locations to the west will celebrate some of these festivals one day earlier. So we saw the same thing for the Amavasya Tarpanam as well. So in the west, the festival will happen one day earlier than the right. It might be slightly counterintuitive, but if you stop to think about it for a minute, you will see that it does indeed make very much sense. Another example is Vinayak Chaturthi last year. And Mumbai and Pune had to celebrate it on 2 different days. So we can quickly look at this map. So you can see the details. So you can actually go down and see for your city. If you were in Ahmedabad, it was on a particular day. If you were to the east of the slide, and looks like Ahmedabad and Vadodara is here. So in Vadodara, you will see that, it's very close to Ahmedabad, but they still had to observe it on a different day, part of it at least. So this is very interesting because, this is not something new, but people have been aware of this for a long, long time. And if you see, Maharashtra Panchangas have been publishing these kinds of maps for a long time. And why is Maharashtra specifically important here? Because Maharashtra and AP, Andhra Pradesh, if you see, have the most longitudinal spread. It's Tamil Nadu and Tamil Nadu has more latitudinal spread. You know, we are relatively narrow. The sunrise delta between like the easternmost part of Tamil Nadu and the westernmost part of Tamil Nadu will not be more than a few minutes. But in Maharashtra, it might be more than 15-20 minutes, I would imagine. So because of this, there are lots of differences. The next highly interesting thing is that very important, and this is something that scholars have emphasized for a long time. Vajpayee Mama has been saying this for years, that people have to look at Shraddha very carefully for their location and decide the date of performance of the annual Shraddha and so on. So, and this is a table that shows you that on so many different, so many days in the coming year, right? So from 16th April onwards, the very first, which is Shraddha maybe, there are changes, right? So you see that the Shukla Navami is in Kanchipuram, but in Kanchipuram, Delhi and Mumbai, it is Shukla Navami on 16th April, but it is Atithi in Kolkata, and that has moved to 17th April. When on which date is Atithi in all the other places? So you'll typically see a lot of these Tithi Dvayams. So you'll see there's Panchami Shakti and Saptami. There is some sort of change, right? So it is Panchami Shakti in most places, but it is Shakti Saptami in Tithi Dvayam in Kolkata. So you have these kind of minor changes that happen. It might be only for a few days in a year, maybe 20 days in a year and so on. But it might be the only Shraddham that is of impact to one person. Right, so it might be if it is that is the day of their father's Shraddha. So you have to, it has to be ensured that that is being performed on the correct day. And sometimes you will see that these things can move a long time. You see that 14th June is Shunya Tithi here, whereas it is Shukla Ashtami in Kolkata, and whereas you will see that this Shukla Ashtami comes like much later or much earlier in the other places, right? So these kinds of changes, and this is because it is connected to Sankramanam and things like this. So these are all calculated based on very complex calculations. So one has to be really careful. So hence this extra embellishment of the warning symbols. So do remember that Shraddha can change from place to place, and not just Kanchipuram and Kolkata, big deal. It can change from Tanjavur to Chennai, and which is what all the people are following, right? So most people follow a Panchangam that is calculated for either Tanjavur or for Chennai. And similarly from Kanchipuram to Bangalore, so few hundred kilometers barely, right? So these are all very important, and one needs to really be careful. So I hope I have jolted you enough and have made you gotten your thinking as to how to now solve this problem. There is a problem that exists. There is no location specific. I mean, you cannot keep blindly adapting your Srirangam Vakya Panchangam or Madatha Panchangam to Mumbai. We don't have the wherewithal to do those calculations. If you are able to do that, great. Then you must already be part of the Panchanga Sadas. But if not, how do you actually compute these, or how do you actually figure these out? You need to find a Panchanga that is as close to your location as possible. So that is the solution. And thankfully, at least Shastri Dharma Panchangam is there for whole of Tamil Nadu is sort of covered. You have 5 locations, and including Bangalore. So you have 5 locations in the south of India, and Mumbai, Kolkata, Delhi, which hopefully caters to a large part of our population. But you might be traveling to Ayodhya for darshan of Ram Lalla, and when do you have to follow the? You might realize that everybody in that city is talking about Ekadashi on a different day, on Ekadashi Upavas on a different day. So how do you get that sorted? Or if it is close to some, if it is a Shraddham that you have to be in, say, Ayodhya for a few months, or you want to perform a Shraddha on a particular Tithi, right? Mahalaya Shraddha on a particular Tithi. Right? Is it the same in that place? In fact, even Mahalaya Paksham, there were changes in the last 2 years. It was mostly towards Andhra and Kolkata side and things like that. So it didn't create enough of a flutter as one normally sees. But I think this is important. So Astika Dharma Panchangam is available for 8 locations. But you also may need to cross-check if there are some local Panchangas available. Like suppose you are in Assam or some other place where, anywhere in Bharat Desha, we need to have access to a correct Panchangam that will help performing Anushtanams at that location. again, please reach out to Bharani Anna when in doubt. He can also consult the Panchaanga Sadas and revert. And anyway, thanks or no thanks to social media. There is always a buzz. Whether there's an uncertainty or even when it is not there, people will create. People will bring out these, random penumbral lunar eclipses and things like that will also show up in social media. And I know all the poor Sadas people who have to scamper to send out communiques to ensure that people don't perform Anushtana unnecessarily. Right? So just like, it is important to perform Anushtanas when it is supposed to, it's also important to not perform Anushtanas or like fasts when, the Deshakalam is not appropriate. So it is important to stick to that. That brings me very nice to my summary again, that it is important to perform Anushtanams correctly as per Deshakala. So fasting on the Dashami brings Papa. Whereas fasting on Ekadashi, there are stories and Puranas which have Nasti Ekadashi Samam Tithi. Right? So, so many Puranas and Rishis have extolled the importance of Ekadashi. And remember that even though Tithi ends at the same time all over the planet, its intersection with sunrise varies. We saw that example of Ekadashi, Amavasya, and all of that. And note IST ending times and use them correctly for daily sankalpas. So that is a simple thing that you can start doing already. IST is convenient. If you had a Gatika clock that is calibrated to your, we hope to get some sort of an app like that ready one day. But if you had a Gatika clock that is location calibrated, then you can use your Panchaanga. Your Panchaanga says 3 to 24 is Ekadashi and your Gatika will show 3:16. So you can say Ekadashyam Shubhaditava and continue your sankalpa. Use the most appropriate Panchaanga for your location and double check Shraddha-Tithis, especially if it is a Tithi Dvayam or at the beginning of a month and things like that. It is only one Shraddha, 2 Shraddha-Tithis maybe you are most interested in every year. So please do extra homework to ensure that those are correctly calculated. As per your Desha location. Spread the word, get more people to use a location specific Panchanga so that more people can, if you are if you are an Astika and you are trying to perform Ekadashi Vratam or, other religious activities, might as well do it at the correct time. Take the little bit, it is much less effort than either doing an Ekadashi Vratam or doing a Shraddam to ascertain what is the date of the correct observance. So, and let us try to understand the Panchanga concepts better and perform these Anushtanams and emphasize therein. As Shri Periva always says, the Panchanga has a huge role in informing the public about what are the Anushtanams to be done and so on. And this way, we will get more of his grace. Jai Jai Shankara, Hara Hara Shankara. I would like to acknowledge a lot of people. First and foremost, the Kanchimatam Panchanga Sadas, which is led by Vajpayee Mama, as we all know him. And also by Ramananna. Both of them happen to be in this picture with, of course, our Periva's blessings. And also Bharani Anna, who has been like a very important part of the Panchanga Sadas and maybe one of the best pracharakas of Panchanga and Anushtanas to the rest of the people through Upanyasam, through Astika Dharma Panchangam, through so many other WhatsApp groups and so on and so forth. So I think again that is really amazing. So acknowledgements to him as well. And with that, thank you very much. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can either track me on Twitter or you can send me an email. And please also check out the blog by Ramananna, which has some very interesting discussions about Uttarayana, about Grik versus Vakyam, and so on and so forth. So with that, I'm happy to finish this talk, but please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to clarify any queries you have. And I hope all of us can, perform our Anushtanams based on location-specific Panchanga so that we do it at the more correct time on the correct days and get the blessings of our Jagat Guru and Bhagavan. Jai Jai Shankara, Hara Hara Shankara.